This story has multiple updates, 3-unit HOA, one crazy owner threatening lawsuits. Check out this video in podcast form by searching Austin Stories wherever you listen, or check the video description for a link. Seriously, FHOA. Our HOA in Massachusetts is made up of just 3 units. We're in an old Victorian that was turned into 3 condos. The association is made up of me, a single female in mid-40s, Unit 2, a single male about the same age, and Unit 3, soon-to-be divorced female, mid-60s, and her adult daughter. Because Unit 3 is much larger than the rest of the building, the fees are broken up so that Unit 3 pays more in HOA fees, but everyone has equal say in voting. Until recently, the husband in Unit 3 was in charge of condo management, which is pretty much just making sure the common area bills get paid. But the couple is divorcing, and he's moving out, and the wife and adult daughter are staying. The problem is that the wife is mentally unstable. I think the daughter might also have issues, but she's not involved in the condo management and upkeep. Since buying the place in October 2019, I've had a couple of bad interactions with her where I unintentionally upset her, very easy to do, and she now refuses to speak to me or even acknowledge my presence when we're in the same common areas together. It's awkward, but I'll do whatever I can to keep the peace. Now we need someone new to handle condo finances. She suggested Unit 2 do it or herself. Unit 2 and I know putting her in charge of anything would be disastrous, but Unit 2 does not want to be in charge either. I can do it, but I know she will object. In the past, our association has only met a couple times a year and has been very slow about getting some of the upkeep that needs to get done. Finish the painting the house, and then repairing some of the wood siding and parts of the porch. It should have been done 2 years ago, but nothing happened. So we started again this summer. A painter was hired. Unit 3 told us that the painter would also do the repairs, and Unit 2 and I agreed with her in 2 separate conversations. Jump to this week. Unit 3 writes a note, her main method of communication, accusing us of being too slow in getting things done and suggesting that we need to hire an outside management company in order for the HOA to function better. She then drops this bomb that someone has been touching and moving her things in the basement and is threatening legal action. Neither of us has any idea what she's talking about. She sent a note a few months ago about the importance of not touching each other's property, and I shrugged it off because, well, I don't touch her stuff. Unit 2 and I feel like a management company for such a small HOA would be an unnecessary expense. However, today, Unit 3 told us that she would take us to court if we didn't agree to a management company and that she would only pay for a third of the fee. She's clearly spiraling out of control, but we don't know how to manage someone like this. A quick Google of her name and address brings up a story about her harassing the former condo owners to the point of police involvement. Neither Unit 2 or I want things to get to that point, but I don't like this idea of giving in to the demands of a manipulative crazy person. The first update. This isn't a great update, but here it is. After getting a 10-day harassment protection order, my upstairs neighbor violated the order on day 8 by sending me and the other owner a letter via registered mail, basically regurgitating all the points made in the previous letters, but this time to also let us know that she has contacted an arbitration firm but hasn't gotten a response yet and is currently searching for a real estate lawyer. She also said that my protection order was in retribution for her taking us to arbitration, which she hasn't yet, and has therefore deemed the order invalid. So I called the police to report the violation, and they came and arrested her. It was amazing. I have no idea why she thought sending that letter was a good idea. She was arraigned yesterday and has a pre-trial hearing in a couple of months. They put a no-contact order for the duration of the case, which is good because today, the judge denied my request to extend the harassment protection order. I don't know why. I'm sure she thinks it's just condo disagreement nonsense and it's not serious. So I'm feeling pretty deflated today, and I know this ruling will just embolden her. I doubt that she'll adhere to the no contact order, but unfortunately violating that won't get her arrested. It'll just be added to the case file or something. Not entirely sure on that part. I want to stay positive, but it's really hard. I don't want to move. I love my place. I think my ultimate goal is to get outside management for the association and get some sort of binding agreement that bars her from communicating with other condo owners. I have no idea how to do this, but there's no way I'm going to go in an association meeting with her again. My other neighbor put his place on the market today, and I really don't want new owners walking into this mess. The next update. Well, friends, as you might imagine, things have not gotten any better. After a week or more of crazy letters, in which crazy neighbor stated that we should not be using her first name in communications about condo business, but should either refer to her as Unit 3 or Ms. Last Name, calling around for lawyers and not getting called back, and clandestine meetings at Dunkin' Donuts, the other non-crazy owner, Unit 2, and I decided that we needed to call the ex-husband because, well, first off, he was still officially the condo manager. Secondly, we needed his input on how to move forward with the painting and the repairs that still need to get done. Long story short, he sent out a condo communication about current finances and so on, and proposed a vote on doing a one-time assessment to cover everything. The association voted to move forward with the assessment to get the repairs done, and then we had a vote about outside management. One of the proposals was to retain him as a condo manager for an extra $50 a month. It might seem weird to have an owner's ex-husband as a condo manager, but we thought it could work. Well, because first of all, Unit 3, as she prefers to be called, had still been singing his praises and talking about how well he ran the association as manager. And next, we already knew him and trusted him to be level-headed and fair. So we voted on keeping him on as a condo manager. Hooray! Problem solved. We all sighed a big sigh of relief and enjoyed some peace and quiet for a good 3 weeks. But of course it didn't last. We heard nothing about the painting and the repairs starting up again, and then Saturday night we get a text saying that he was resigning as condo manager. I'm assuming Unit 3 finally turned on him and he couldn't take it anymore. So back to square one. Last night I composed a letter that basically said that Unit 2 and I would like to move forward with finding an external management company. We found one that would charge the association like $300 a month, which seems somewhat reasonable, although it's still stupid we even need one. I included the company's proposal, and I proposed that, if she found other companies, that we can review the proposals next week and then vote on which ones to use. I also mentioned that the association voted yes on the assessment for the repairs and painting, and so we should move forward on that. She was the original person dealing with the painting company, so of course when we asked her 3 weeks ago for the contact info, she refused to give it, and she said that she should remain in contact with the company. Then I said that we would like to move all communication to email because the other owner's frequently away, so these stupid notes in mailboxes wasn't going to work. I didn't use the word stupid in the letter though. So today, we get a letter in the mailbox from her, accusing us of breaking the bylaws by meeting without her and then saying how horrible it was that we met and decided on her own to have her ex-husband as condo manager. This did not happen. Communication was sent out by the guy who was still officially our manager, and we voted on it. She then claims that we met and moved forward with the repairs without her input. Again, this was brought forward by the official condo manager and voted on. She then makes this amazing proposal that she should actually be the condo manager because she maintains a professional position at all times and has never treated a unit owner unfairly or spoken badly of any unit owner to another person. She then said that she would not commit to any external management companies unless there are 3 proposals to choose from. After all of our calling, we've only found 2 that would handle an association as small as ours, and that she won't commit to paying for repairs until we get a new estimate because the price of wood has dropped 70%. Anyhow, at this point, Unit 2 has already decided to move. He has his own personal issues going on, and he does not need the added stress of a crazy neighbor. I'm staying because, screw her? Also, I'm not moving until I have the dollars to buy a single-family home that's not connected to any HOA. I called the painting company and found out that no one's called them since this whole crap show began. So I got a new quote on everything, and I'm sending that out via email along with a statement saying that we did not intend to violate any bylaws, and I propose moving forward with getting 3 quotes on outside management companies and voting on that. Unfortunately, my non-crazy neighbor is putting his place on the market this week, which means that everything will most likely come to a screeching halt again. And after the last update, I spent a lot of time trying to track down a lawyer to help us. The real estate lawyer said that they only drew up sale contracts and didn't have the experience to help, so they suggested I go to a civil litigation lawyer. Civil attorneys either never responded or said that they didn't handle housing law. Most just never returned my calls. I finally got in touch with an old friend who works in a law office, and we're going to talk today. Final update. Well, last week was hands down the worst week of my life. After a series of threatening and erratic letters from my upstairs neighbor, aka Unit 3, I finally filed a restraining order, officially known as a protection from harassment order. Neighbor got served with it last night while I waited it out in a bar. From Monday to Saturday last week, Unit 3 sent us 6 different letters. The best thing to do would be to break everything down day by day. Monday's letter. Now this was covered in my last update. Unit 3 accused us of meeting behind her back to bring back her ex as a condo manager and decided on the repairs without her. Not true. She said that voting to keep her ex-husband as the condo manager was a huge boundary violation. She also said that she would not approve of any repairs without an estimate. My response? I responded to her via email since I stated in my last letter to her that it was my preferred method of contact. My email included the estimate for the repairs as she requested, and I told her that I voted on the repairs and the condo management through an official association communication sent by her ex-husband, who was still the official manager. After making a copy of her letter, I then returned the original to her mailbox, stating that I requested that all communication be done over email. So on Wednesday's letter, my other neighbor, Unit 2, notifies his intent to sell and requests that a decision be made on repairs in a prompt manner. Unit 3 replies to this letter, saying that she hoped that the past few weeks didn't cause him too much stress and that she agreed to move forward with the repairs. She then says that she is sure her ex-husband would be happy to serve as condo manager during this transition. She apologizes for not responding by email, but states that she only uses her email for private matters, that she never gives it out, and that she does not know how I got her email address. She included her email address as a way to contact her in a letter that she sent out last month. My response? I call the contractors to tell them that the association has decided to move forward with the repairs and for them to let me know when they start. I then email the ex-husband in order to confirm his agreement to stay on as condo manager and pay the bills for the repairs. I ignore Unit 3's claim that she never gave me her email address. So number 3 and 4 Friday's letters. This is a 3-page letter stating that while she still agrees to move forward with the repairs, she no longer thinks her ex will want to continue as condo manager. She then launches into this long diatribe about how I included her email address in a condo association letter, even though she never gave it to me. She did, and that I could have only gotten her email from a third party, which was another huge boundary violation and possibly illegal. She also says that she once had an email for just condo matters, but she had to delete it because a previous member of the association was harassing her. She then said that she would never use an email for condo matters in order to protect herself from harm. There's also a lot of talk about ethics and how she is a very ethical person, but that I am clearly not. She then talks about how she told Unit 2 that she would vote for him in the condo association manager if he took back what he said in the last meeting about her causing the previous owners of my unit to move out. Unit 2 declined, so he obviously is not fit to be condo manager. She calls what he said to her slander, and that slander could be very hurtful to her because she is planning to run for public office in 2022. She then says how that she no longer thinks external management's a good idea because of the expense, and that she should be the condo manager because she's very ethical and respectful and never says bad things about other condo owners. She then goes on to talk again about how her complaints about her things being touched and tampered with were not being taken seriously, and how I have no respect for her boundaries and have made threats to her in the past. I've not. She closes her comments by saying that if the association votes me in as condo manager, she will take the association to arbitration. So my response now, at this point, I'm completely rattled and I'm freaked out about being alone in the building with her. My other neighbors moved out at this point. I take the time to make a copy of the letter she wrote, which included her email address, and drop it in her mailbox, just saying, "Hi, here's the note you left me that included your email address." Then I drive straight to my parents for dinner, where we discuss the possibility of needing to get a restraining order because at this point, she's harassing me under the cover of condo business. So I get home that night, and I see another letter in my mailbox. This one just states that I provided evidence that she gave out her email, but that the rest of the contents of her letter still stand. I call the police department, and they connect me with the psych clinician on staff, and I leave her a voicemail. Basically, Unit 3 is not mentally well and that I needed to speak to a trained professional. Earlier that day, I sent an email to my other neighbor and the ex to let them know that the repairs were starting the next day. I was going to print out this email and leave it in Unit 3's mailbox when I got home from work, but after reading her 3-page letter, I decided that there was no use communicating with her anymore and I needed to cut off all contact. 5 and 6 Saturday's letters. Now the workmen arrive and I leave for most of the day. I speak to a family friend who's a social worker and deals with a lot of mentally ill people involved in the court system. Her take is that my neighbor has had some sort of delusional disorder and that I really need to just file a restraining order. I arrive home to a letter that I barely have the stomach to read at this point. It goes off about the carpenters already starting the repairs, and that she never officially agreed to start the repairs, and that what we were doing was illegal. She then says that she's going to file for arbitration, and that arbitration will also include the other issues happening to her. There's another follow-up letter correcting some small detail in the other letter. And my response is that I notify my boss that I'll not be in at work on Monday because I need to go to court to file a restraining order. So Monday rolls around, and first I visit the Registrar of Deeds to get the most up-to-date documents related to our HOA. I learn that no one has ever officially been named condo manager with the registry, and that the last time the association filed a document was in 2015. I also learned that I was never named a trustee of the association, as is usually the process. I don't know what any of this means, except that my HOA has been pretty lax about following procedures. The site clinician from the police department calls me back to discuss what's going on. We agree that her going to make a mental health check might make things worse for me, and that I needed to file a restraining order right away. While I'm at court filing the restraining order, the ex-husband finally responds to my email, saying that he has agreed to stay on as condo manager and will help facilitate payment for the repairs and so on. I have to tell him that his ex-wife is now refusing to pay her portion for the repairs and is working on taking us to arbitration. My restraining order is granted, so I go sit in the bar to give the PD time to serve the order to her. She's had bad interactions with the police before, so I'm sure the scene was not pretty. So today, no letters in my mailbox so far. The other unit has offered to pay for the majority of the repairs, so that Unit 3 won't have that issue to bring up in arbitration. She probably still will. So I had to send another email to the acting condo manager to let him know about the restraining order and that the other unit and I will pay for the repairs. And then I basically just said that I don't know how the condo association can continue to function as it is with Unit 3's state of mind. I have a couple of things I'm working on in my condo, and once those are finished, I'll most likely put my condo on the market. It sucks, because even though it's a great time to sell, there are not a lot of available condos here within my price range, and I just wish there was something I could do to save the future owners from having to deal with this nightmare neighbor again. I hate to say it, but this person's trying to take advantage of you and just take all their power and try to make it their own thing. And you know what? You're standing up to them, and they're backing down now that you have the true answers. And to sell your property because of a stupid HOA Karen sucks, but I hope that everything works out for you in the end. What would have you done? Neighbor used HOA against me. Two can play at that game. Roughly 6 years ago, my wife and I decided to move, pre-COVID times when everything was cheap still. Long story short there, we couldn't find any pre-existing houses that we really liked, but did find the neighborhood where we currently live and built a house with the developer. As people do, we drove by every so often to look at the progress they were making on the house. One night, we stopped and went out to look at the hole in the ground, as they had just gotten ready to pour the concrete for the basement walls. Here comes scumbag Steve, acting like a concerned neighbor because materials have been getting stolen. We explained that we'd be the new neighbors and had a brief conversation with this Karen on where he commented that he and another neighbor are the unofficial neighborhood watch. Missed that red flag at the moment, but we left feeling warm and fuzzy because the neighbors looked after each other. Unbeknownst to us, scumbag Steve, our Karen, is really just an overactive nosy Nelly and really just looking for ways to screw with people. A bit of foreshadowing now. Some things that he has done to other neighbors are letting his dog use the bathroom wherever she wants without cleaning it up, looking through neighbors' trash cans, asking about a neighbor's doorbell camera, like how far it can pick up stuff and so on. I know I'm being a bit nitpicky here, but it tracks for him. We also found out later that he's a drunk, and he'll proudly proclaim and brag about how he beat his DUI that he got after a heated argument with his wife. He's also a scavenger and scrapper, so who's really stealing those materials, Steve? One day, I decided that I want to start being a bit more self-sufficient and picked up some chickens to raise for eggs. Now, I'm not really that guy that wants to be annoying to my neighbors, but even then, the area that we live in is surrounded by farms and is farm-themed. I did my due diligence and checked town ordinances and the HOA guidelines that we were given and found no rules or ordinances against having chickens or poultry on your property. Backtracking slightly, when we signed our contract and went to settlement, we only received a one-page flyer that went over some basic items restricted by the HOA. No grilling in the front yard, no permanent basketball hoops in the street, no boats or RVs on a permanent basis, and so on. There was no mention of anything about the types of animals that you can or cannot have. So, working on the idea that I am in the clear, I buy some chicks and begin raising them. I decided that since I had a kennel at my old house we rented from my in-laws for a couple of years until we were ready to move, I'd go pick that up and set it up around my coop for the chickens to have some free roaming space. The kennel had 4 fence pieces that I could move on my own, but they were heavy, so I backed my truck up to my fence where the kennel was going to go in the backyard, and I start heaving them over. Steve, our Karen, sees me doing this and offers to lend a hand with getting them over the fence, so sure, why not? He asks why I need a dog kennel if I have a fence, to which I inform him that it's not for my dogs and for the chickens. I should have known that he was going to cause issues from here, because the next thing he asked is, "Your HOA allows chickens?" It was phrased that way because he had lived there when the first developer of that neighborhood owned it, but they went bankrupt and my developer took over. It's the same HOA, but we didn't know that at the time. Anyway, I told him that I didn't see anything in the paperwork provided to me regarding chickens, and that was that. Until the next day, Steve comes over with a loaf of bread from his mother's bakery that he occasionally helps at, and he's making small talk when he brings up the chickens again. This time, he's only talking to my wife about it, but he again brings up that his HOA doesn't allow it, and he was bummed about that. That's where the story should have ended. Maybe about a week later or so, I got a letter from the HOA. "It has come to our attention that you have chickens on your property. Per bylaw X, that is not allowed, and you have 30 days to remove them from your property." I was perplexed. How on earth did they find out about them, and why was I not provided with a copy of the HOA bylaws when I signed the contract for my house? The day after receiving the letter, my wife and I are on our way home from some errands when another neighbor that we're friendly with flags us down and tells us, "Hey, I don't know if you know, but Steve the Karen went up to your fence and was taking pictures of your backyard." For context, there was an empty lot between Steve's house and ours, but that finally clicked for us. Steve freaking reported us to the HOA. Me being me, I'm not going to take this sitting down, I'm going to fight this. Some bullcrap HOA, which is the developer's maintenance corporation, isn't going to tell me what I can or can't do on my property. Spoiler alert, they did indeed tell me what I couldn't do. Through a bunch of back and forth with the HOA, I get a copy of the bylaws and I start picking through them with a fine-tooth comb. I found out that someone had sent in 7 pages worth of pictures of all the infractions of the HOA rules, including the picture of my co-op. I should also mention that I was in hot water with the HOA when I had our fence installed because it wasn't a split rail fence with chicken wire, so it didn't match the aesthetic that the developer wanted for the neighborhood. They never said another thing about it though, and I ended up being the catalyst for everyone else doing whatever they wanted with their fences. Also, since I'm being petty, literally any fence that is white vinyl is technically against the HOA bylaws, as it states that they can only be split rail with a maximum of 5 feet and made of wood. But here's where finally the petty revenge comes in. You see, Steve has an area of his backyard that's blocked off by some wood privacy fencing that is not split rail and it's much taller than the 5-foot maximum. Oh yeah, and there's also some unsightly plant growth that's outside the HOA guidelines regarding the plants that you can have on your property. Well, I think it's high time that the HOA hears about these gross infractions of their bylaws, seeing as how we're all trying to do the right thing and follow the rules. So, I snapped a couple pictures of the privacy fence, the eyesore plants, and the static line that he has for his dog in the front yard. Felt a little bad for the dog initially, but he'd leave her out for hours and she'd run into the street at cars driving by, and since the static line was long enough for her to get her whole body past the curb. I can't tell you how many almost heart attacks I had because I thought I was about to run over a dog. Well, I can tell you that probably about a week or so later, Steve the Karen got his nastygram from the HOA, informing him that he needed to move the static line and remove the privacy fence, because I watched with absolute glee as he removed his privacy fence. Good old Steve sticking his nose like a Karen where it doesn't belong. You ever had a neighbor do that, or have they mainly just mind their own business? Let me know. If you want to get cool badges and see some videos early while supporting me and the channel, click the join button to become a member. Thanks. Neighbor calling authorities and harassing me over dogs. So I've been dealing with my neighbor trying to get me in trouble and just being nasty. For reference, we own our home and we both have dogs. I have large dogs, they're friendly, and she has a small dog that likes to run at the fence and bark at mine. Well, my dogs decided to finally dig a hole under the fence and ventured into her yard. Didn't do anything. When I noticed, I called them and they came back. Well, she lost her crap about it and said that she feared for her and her dog's life. She wanted to call animal control and blah blah blah. I told her that I would take care of the hole and fill it in as soon as I had my next day off, since I work 12-hour shifts from 6 in the morning to night, and by the time I'm home, it's too dark to work, and it's going to take more than just dirt. I wanted to put dig guards down, and that my dogs would remain inside and only out to potty if I'm supervising them. Meanwhile, she put sandbags down to cover the hole. The next day, my husband finally comes home from military orders, and I come home from work. I let the dogs out to potty and supervise them. I noticed my neighbor and some other chick in their yard staring at my dogs from their yard, whispering. My husband goes out there to see what's up and then comes back in with our dogs and tells me that they're calling animal control. I'm like, what the heck, why? And he's like, well, because they said that they were in their yard and they weren't. They, with an attitude, had asked him if he was going to work on the hole. He just said that he wasn't doing it right away since we just got home, and they were like, okay, well, we're calling animal control, even though no crime was actually being committed and our dogs were in the house. She claims that she is terrified for her life, even though, again, my dogs are in the freaking house. My husband goes over to have a calm conversation with them, only to have my neighbor's daughter start yelling at him and then, apparently, took out her phone and started recording him after she amped him up. He turned and walked away. So I go over, I try to reason with them, and I tell them that the dogs are being watched until we patch everything up, and ask them to work with us. My mother is scared for her life and blah blah blah. We already called dispatch. You guys need to work on it right now. We saw your dog's head under the fence. We go back home and dispatch comes and just tells us to make sure our dogs stay in our yard, and he leaves. I'm normally good at picking up vibes, and I feel like that they called animal control just to be vindictive, given their antagonizing attitudes and jumping to calling authorities even if our dogs weren't in their yard, because we weren't doing what they wanted right away. This lady does nothing all day, doesn't seem to work, so I'm guessing that she's bored. We were practicing a temporary fix until we're able to seal it, and we had just gotten home and were going to fix it together when there was daylight. I'm worried she's going to keep harassing us about crap even when it's fixed, and she's going to watch for any little thing. She even griped to the other neighbors, and we've been getting side-eyed. We've only been living in our newly bought house for a year, and I already want to leave because of how horrible of a reaction that we've received. It makes me uncomfortable. What would you do? Do you agree with this? Yeah, this doesn't sound like unreasonable behavior to me at all. Your large dogs were left unsupervised long enough that they dug a hole under the fence big enough to get through. Yikes, I'd also be on edge and very vigilant if that happened to me. I wonder how much more her actions would seem justified if she told her side of the story. I didn't think about that at first because, the husband got amped up. I wonder if there's more to the story, or is she just being a Karen? What would you do? Allow me to set the scene. I am a worker for a company whose name that I will leave out for obvious reasons. I have a manager who is in this story, and I will refer to him as Jay. Jay has a tendency to say things that legally he is not supposed to say. He has an assistant who I will call Sarah. After much confusion on if our specific assigned post would be open for Christmas Eve, we finally received a call from Sarah stating that our post will be closed and that she hopes we enjoy our holiday and day off. Sarah is a hard-working and sweet person, while Jay is a person only worried about their own comfort. I have dinner plans with my mother at 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and a few minutes after being told that we have off, Sarah calls me back personally to say that, sadly, I was assigned a different post from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Christmas Eve. No problem, a little extra pay, and I'd still have 4 hours to get everything ready. This is where Jay gets involved. Jay then corrects Sarah and says that the shift is 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., but since I already accepted, I can't back out. To keep things simple, my contract with the company does not force me to work overtime, nor does it force me to accept scheduling changes if it inconveniences plans that I had prior to the schedule change. So then I say to Sarah, "Hey, Sarah, I'm sorry, but that shift doesn't work for me. I have dinner plans with my mother. 6 to 2 is fine, but 2 to 10 is the worst possible schedule." She says, "Okay, Austin, I'll talk to Jay about this. Would you mind waiting a second for me?" "Not at all, that's fine." So I wait, only to overhear Jay's words to Sarah. "That jerk doesn't have plans. Tell him he's being reassigned and that I don't want to have to hear any of his bullcrap complaints." Expletives censored for personal sake. Remember, I overheard this, and when Sarah comes back to explain, I tell her that I overheard him and that I'd like to speak with HR if she wouldn't mind. Side note, office phone calls are always recorded, and seeing as how Jay is new to our district, he didn't actually know about this. Sarah says that HR isn't in the building and that I would need to ask Jay directly for their personal phone number. I ask Jay for HR's personal phone number, and he responds in the only way you'd expect someone of his likeliness to respond. "I go ahead and complain. They're not going to do anything about it." This is the part of the story where I mention that Jay is not a regional manager. His regional manager, who I will call Bethany, is an absolute tough-as-nails woman who doesn't allow her employees to be discriminated against. I had mentioned this to Bethany as soon as it happened, and Bethany simply responds with, "Oh, don't worry, I'll make sure that this gets resolved." Fast forward to now, about 8 hours later, and Jay calls me and very obviously choking back his pride says, "Hey, I'm sorry for the way that I acted, and I would like to tell you that I found coverage for that post, so you may have your day off like originally stated. I'm sorry for any inconveniences, and if you were insulted in any way, I hope you enjoy your holidays." Bethany then calls me to tell me that she will be auditing Jay and monitoring him to make sure that he cannot retaliate against me, and that currently he'd be suspended without pay because they heard his words over the recorded phone call. Sometimes awful bosses get what they deserve, and while this may be seen as revenge, I just wanted the day off to take my mother out, and this suspended without pay was not my intentions at all. Isn't it funny how the bosses think that they're above the law, but then they get caught out on their stuff and have to choke their pride and just apologize? What would have you done in this case? Karen property story time. Fix the hot tub or else. I used to work for a large hotel chain at the front desk for a short time in college. I saw my fair share of entitled people, since many of them always wanted a free upgrade. On the particular day of this story, our hot tub was broken due to having an imbalance of chlorine. If you've never tried to get chemicals right in a hot tub, it's a nightmare. We had an automated system that could never do it quite right, and I was constantly babysitting it. So at around 1 p.m., a mom and her son, who had to be no older than 8, walked to the front desk. Check-in is normally at 3 p.m., so she was very early. She strolls up to the counter and immediately sees the hot tub out of commission sign, and I could quickly see the scowl on her face. I say, "Hi ma'am, welcome to the hotel. How can I help?" She cuts me off. "Is your hot tub really broken?" Yes ma'am, my apologies." "Ugh, that's ridiculous. Why didn't you say that on your website?" "I'm sorry ma'am, it just broke today and we normally don't post it online." "Will it be fixed tomorrow? This is for my son's birthday party and you've already ruined it." I've no idea ma'am, I'm sorry. Also, the hot tub's not recommended for children under 10. I figured it would make her mad, but my manager was pretty strict on no little kids in the hot tub for skincare reasons. Higher temperatures in a chlorinated tub can cause kids to get rashes easily, and we had to comp a previous stay for that very issue a few weeks back. She scoffs and says, "My son loves his hot tubs, and this was his special treat on his 9th birthday. So, fix the hot tub, or else I will need to leave." I'm sorry, ma'am. If you choose to leave, please let me know so I can cancel your room. Actually, since I'm a rewards member, maybe you can make up for this with a free upgrade. Please hand me your license and credit card for incidentals. I pull up her room and note that there was not only no rewards under her name, but she had booked through Expedia. If you haven't worked at hotels, then you might not know that hotels booked through third-party websites are not treated as highly as direct bookings. It's dumb, but not my policy. "Hey, I'm sorry ma'am, it looks like you booked through Expedia, and due to that I just cannot upgrade you as you locked in your room type, even if you are a rewards member. My apologies." Ugh, what? I've stayed with this brand for years and this is how you reward me? I'm very sorry, ma'am. Just give me the keys. I'll go talk to your manager later. My son needs a nap. I'm sorry, ma'am. Your room's not ready yet. Can you do anything right? Your manager, now. My manager took her aside and talked to her for quite a while. Eventually, my manager gave her an open room and she left. I asked her, my manager, what she demanded, and of course, the lady wanted a free night by citing the guarantee of our hotel brand. She told the lady that, unfortunately, that 100% guarantee was only for direct bookings, and if she wanted a free room, she needed to contact Expedia. She accepted the ready room, slightly smaller, so that she could call Expedia. I hate when parents try and hide behind their kids' birthdays for free stuff, and this mom was no exception. Karen does not own the property of the hotel. She is a guest getting a service paying that hotel. And if it's broken, I am sorry, it sucks. Your kid shouldn't even be there anyway. I mean, I have a kid, and no. What would you do in this situation? Some backstory before I share the text messages that really make this great. PSA, this story is long because it contains messages, but the drama is worth it. This officially started because my grandmother-in-law really wanted to see my newborn son. My grandmother-in-law over the years has started to show signs of what I believe is dementia and doesn't make the best judgments. I've also realized she can be emotionally manipulative and has been way before she started to show signs of not completely being there. I won't go into much detail about this, just trust me when I say she's overall not a great person, but she's still my husband's grandmother and I would never have done anything to upset her. Now, after about 2 months, my grandmother-in-law has really been pushing to see my son. Both me and my husband were hesitant about this because she's been very sick recently. On top of that, she has a history of being sick but not telling anyone that she is until after the fact. So, for example, like a family gathering. When I was super pregnant, we were invited to Thanksgiving at their house, and I declined to go because I was getting induced the next week, and if I got sick, they would have pushed it back further. My grandmother-in-law promised she was fine, but I didn't feel comfortable with it and stayed home. Not even 2 days later, she told mother-in-law that she was very sick and wasn't feeling great, even at Thanksgiving. All relevant to why I didn't want her to see my son yet, as we are still deep in RSV season and he had just gotten his first round of vaccines. However, much pushing and guilt tripping from both her, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law, we decided that she could meet our son at our house. Just a little detail, we live with my grandmother and she helps me so much with my son. Honestly, the most amazing woman ever. We decided that if grandmother-in-law was going to come over, we were going to set boundaries to make sure our son was safe and to have our own peace of mind. The boundaries were that we weren't comfortable with grandmother-in-law holding son, but would love for her to finally be able to see him. I specify this because some people see it was wrong that we would exclude her from holding son, but we specified this to everyone before she came over, and grandmother-in-law agreed with it. Remember, she has continuously been sick and won't tell anyone she is, and when it comes time to see son, no way in heck was she gonna cancel if she felt ill. On top of this, we said she needed to wear a mask and take a COVID test beforehand. The day that she came over, we received a text from my mother-in-law that she was also coming with my grandmother-in-law and asked what time they should arrive. Mother-in-law has been to our house a few times, so it wasn't a huge deal, but I realize now it wasn't the best idea. They walk in, and grandmother-in-law shows my grandmother the COVID test, not us, but whatever, and proceeds to stuff the mask she was holding back into her purse. At this point, I'm kind of over it, but I just smile and talk to her for a little bit before going back to the kitchen while my husband took the dog outside to use the bathroom. When I was out of hearing range, or so she thought, she asked my grandmother to hold son. My grandmother turned to me in the kitchen and repeated the question, and I simply stated, "Would you mind asking husband when he gets back?" I figured, since it's husband's grandmother-in-law, it would be a lot gentler if he let her down. Instead, grandmother-in-law started crying, no actual tears, and exclaimed, "Why does no one like me?" Remember what I said about being emotionally manipulative? Yeah, I was uncomfortable. My grandmother was uncomfortable. Our poor other dog in the kitchen with me was uncomfortable. I excused myself to go start laundry after checking with my grandmother she was okay holding Son for another minute before my husband came back in. Immediately when I left the room, again, my mistake, my mother-in-law walks over, takes my son from my grandmother, and puts him on my grandmother-in-law's lap. Before this, Son was smiling and laughing while my grandmother held him, but faced him toward grandmother-in-law. My son lost it and started screaming. My husband walks in at this point, sees Son on grandmother-in-law's lap, and immediately grabbed him from grandmother-in-law and went into the kitchen. My mother-in-law was shocked and made a snide comment of, "Oh, so no one gets to hold Son today." Then they both left soon after, and my grandmother apologized profusely for the situation when I found out. It definitely wasn't her fault at all. Now comes the real dramatic part. 3 weeks after what I will now call the incident, my mother-in-law has been calling husband, and we explained to her that we were upset with how that happened. She didn't grasp what she did wrong, and the conversation ultimately went nowhere. Another week and more calls. Here's where the text messages come into the story. Husband to mother-in-law said, "Hey, I want you to know I'm not ignoring you, but I'm still not over what happened. We want you to be a part of ours and Son's life, but because of the boundaries you broke, we don't feel comfortable having you over for a while." Next week, sister-in-law to husband, "Hey, want to do dinner at Mom's on Saturday if y'all aren't busy? I want to see Son." Husband says, "No, Mom still hasn't even tried to talk to us after her and Nana came here." The next day, sister-in-law to husband says, "Hey, what's the deal with Mom and Nana? Something's been off since that day they came over there. Y'all have been distant. I just want to know what's going on." Husband says, "I already talked to Mom, but me and OP decided that we aren't comfortable with Mom coming over for a while because she broke boundaries. It's important to us because we did discuss beforehand what we expected, and Son's health is more important than anything." Sister-in-law replies, "Oh, okay, but what boundaries were broken? I'm confused. She wasn't sick or anything. She'd been around Son before that day that they went over there. What happened specifically that day that made y'all feel uncomfortable, other than Nana not wearing a mask?" "We already told Mom about it. Don't worry." The next day, side note, my postpartum depression has gotten extremely bad and in-laws were starting to be a little much on Facebook, so I took them off. Sister-in-law to husband said, "Why did OP unfriend me and Mom on Facebook? Stepdad just called and said Mom is bawling her eyes out over this whole situation. I don't know what the deal is, but I hope you realize what y'all are doing to the family. I'm not trying to be in the middle of anything, but Mom and Nana feel like they can't talk to you or OP. What's the deal? This crap can't go on forever. Y'all need to work it out." Husband says, "Like I said before, we already talked to Mom about it. You said you weren't going to choose sides, and it seems you already have. Please stay out of it." OP unadded everyone because she has way too much going on and doesn't want to be in the drama. We never said Mom wouldn't see Son again, but we still need time. Son is our son, and Mom and Nana broke a boundary that we set even before Son was born. Even if someone in OP's family did the same thing, it would be the same outcome. We were hesitant about Nana coming over at all because of exactly what just happened. The next day, and after a phone call with sister-in-law where sister-in-law said OP was causing all the drama. Husband says, "After that conversation, me and OP have talked and decided we feel you need to completely stay out of everything going on. We understand you're trying to defend Mom and be a messenger, but you have more than likely have unknowingly taken her side in this when there is no side. We are Son's parents, and we get to decide who does and doesn't see him. We aren't going to keep going in circles on what boundaries are because we have already stated multiple times what they were. What matters now is that Mom and now you can't respect that we need time to just move on from the situation. No one is trying to start drama, but by dragging more people into this, like Dad, you are in fact causing drama and we don't appreciate it. In case you forgot, we were very hesitant on Nana seeing Son for the very reasons that happened. Not only did Nana ask to hold Son when both OP and I left the room, but Mom then took it in her own hands to hand Son to Nana. We already stated that we were concerned for Son getting sick, and we weren't comfortable with her holding him, but that wasn't good enough for them. Son is not a toy. We aren't mad at them, but the situation, but you have nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter, you are the messenger. You can still come and see Son whenever you want, but we need time away from Mom and to process the situation. Sister-in-law says, okay. In case you're wondering, yes, sister-in-law did kind of come out of left field. I received comments that we shouldn't have just let this continue and just ignore sister-in-law, but we genuinely wanted her to just understand why we were upset, and we would really like her to not get involved. I was starting to feel like maybe I was just a witch and posted the text messages, names hidden of course, to a Facebook group called Monster-in-Laws. Not even a few hours later, and I received a text from sister-in-law with screenshots of the post and question marks. I have no freaking clue how she found the post, as she is blocked on my Facebook, but she did. I felt very, very uncomfortable with her just happening upon my post, or if someone on a group of thousands of people recognized the story and sent it to sister-in-law. Really not a huge fan of that. When I ignored her text, she sent the screenshots to my husband. Here's what followed. Husband to sister-in-law says, "Can you just mind your own dang business? You have done nothing but stir the pot. OP has had nothing but problems since Son was born, and honestly, the last thing she needs is this. I don't know what kind of resentment you harbor toward her, or why you even do, but you've hated her since we got married. Guess what? You're going to have to deal with it. OP and Son are my family now, and they come before anything. I won't let you or anybody act this way toward us. Decide if this is worth having a semblance of a relationship with us. I don't give a crap at this point, because honestly, I have zero interest in ever talking to you again." Sister-in-law to husband says, "I haven't done anything. I've just been the messenger in this whole situation. If that's what you want, then fine." Shows OP's true character. I forgave OP for what she did to you. She's always assumed I've had it out for her, but I haven't. You don't understand how much you've affected and hurt our family. OP caused all of this. I wasn't the one asking to see Son. I was sticking up for Mom and Nana. They felt like they couldn't say anything to you because they didn't want to upset you. I chose to be the messenger in this whole situation because I actually care and love my family. You've done irreversible emotional damage to Mom and Nana, and now me. I hope you realize that, and I wasn't the one starting drama. If you don't ever want to talk to me again, then fine, so be it. Don't come back around later saying, "I told you so," but because I've done nothing but try and be nice and accepting toward OP, and all I get is this. But if that's the life y'all chose to live, then go ahead. OP is never like me or Mom, or any of our family for that matter, and it said it comes to picking sides. Don't call me a pot stirrer because I've done nothing wrong. I've only told the truth, and sometimes the truth hurts. Getting mad and unfriending me and blocking me also doesn't solve anything. Tell me where I've gone wrong in this situation. Please, I was only looking out for Mom and Nana because it hurts me to see them so upset. This is not guilt-tripping you, this is just the honest truth. I haven't done anything wrong, yet I'm causing drama because I'm the only one not afraid to shoot you straight. Husband replies, "I'm taking my wife's side." Like I said, it's sad you feel like you have to pick a side. We're adults, and y'all are married. When you get married, you don't pick sides. Am I wrong? Please tell me what I did wrong. Honestly, this could have been over with the first text to mother-in-law. Husband and I just needed a week or two to feel comfortable having them over again, and instead, sister-in-law made it worse. HOA fines me $2,000 every day that I don't stay home. Click the video on your screen so you find out what happens to that HOA, and I'll see you there.